we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't care that we're halfway through. We have a freaking pick ban of Game 1, RNG LNG Round 3. Our top 6 finally begins, Aux.
Oh, and we'll very quickly dive in to the bans. Diana has been banned consistently by RNG Plastic Series. Syndra, something that gives Icon really heavy prio. Camille, great for Arley. On the other side, these are just signature picks for RNG, and the Jace is a heavy ban for LNG. RNG, they pick up the Xin Zhao for Wei, which is great. Yep. They have Cryin on Lissandra. Not quite the Roman mid we typically see, but still has that, and it's a good matchup into LeBlanc. And the Varus for Gala. So all very positive things. The important thing is that takeaway of the Viego, which we'll likely see go to Arley. So I'm interested to see what Xiaohu's going to bring out to respond to that. Ultimately, I think both teams in a pretty decent position so far, and he's going to very quickly lock in that Varus. So really strong team fighting here from RNG, and LNG not really going to hold back an answer. It feels like looking at RNG, their mid game super powerful, tons of CC, tons of team fighting potential. Whereas LNG, I feel like it's more focused on those picks, right? They have the Ashe, the LeBlanc. Once you get a pick, you get a reset with the Viego. So definitely LNG playing things a bit more spread, whereas RNG will be looking for those groupings.
Isn't it great that we've actually just like speedrun game number 1 pick ban as well? I want to bring back the conditions where you talked about team fighting for RNG, LNG pick style. Really good definitions here, Aux, as we proceed into this game that we have waited almost 3 hours for. That for RNG, we talked a lot about jungle support. For LNG, we talked about this game. You have waited almost 3 hours for the round 3 debut of RNG versus the miracle run of LNG. I'm going to flick you back to RNG. Ladies and gentlemen, they won Spring, they won MSI. Now they're trying to pave that golden road once again, like they almost did in 2018. To try and get Summer 2 and get that first seed at Worlds. That's what's on the line here. Both teams secured for regional qualifiers, but regional qualifiers is not good enough with both the form of RNG and LNG. Aux, welcome to the Rift once again with such high stakes. Welcome to Game 1. Thank you for being patient. Let's just quickly talk about some runes, because I want to look towards the top side immediately. Xiaohu with the Electrocute. Not something we see on this top lane, Kennen.
Yeah, I think it gives you a lot of burst power when it comes to team fights. But, I mean, realistically, the state of Kennen at the moment is you're not really going to be able to do that much to a Viego to really shut him down. But your value is when you come into team fights. Kennen spikes extremely hard of every single item he picks up. You know, Protobelt, massive for him, Zhonya's, Void Staff, all give him really big power spikes. I'm going to be seeing him playing towards that. For the side of LNG, though, again, you want to be avoiding those team fights, but you want to be finding a bit more early momentum at being able to play through your lanes and keep these members separated. For now, as much as Lissandra is that good matchup into the LeBlanc, it's not because of the early laning phase. It's more when you get in the later stages, you have that instant CC to stop her from diving in. So we should see Icon able to apply some pressure here. Bot lane, the Trundle is something I actually want to talk about. This pick has emerged quite heavily, really strong into melee champions, into Leona, because if Leona obviously has a W, which gives extra resistances, Aftershock does as well. If you ult her, you steal so much away.
That's true, and note that the Guardian being run by Lwandy here as well. We talked a lot about support jungle teeing up, but Tarzan versus Wei. Another big eventuality that could come through with Tarzan invading the enemy jungle. And look at this, Iwandi's already out of lane. The level 2 Trundle trying to help with the red buff steal.
Yeah, and honestly, Trundle actually does a ton of damage to individual camps at this point, even as a support. So he's actually able to help Tarzan kill this quickly. And this is what we expect. You know, we see Iwandy constantly leaning lane, finding these windows. And I'm really glad to see this from LNG, because they know as much as this Xin Zhao is strong, things like the Lissandra aren't really going to be in a position to help right now. And again, this priority achieved by the Ashe is a massive factor. The Ashe is something that we've started to see more and more, just because with your volley, with your long range, very easy for you to shove a wave in and establish control. And it's allowed Tarzan to get that advantage, get that Scuttle Crab, and he's still got more camps to clear through.
He does. He can just move his way up towards the top side. Double Scuttle is an opportunity. With Teleport being burnt by Icon, but Wei doesn't care. Ganking nice and early with the Xin Zhao if he can get into this lane.
Yeah, I don't think there's really going to be an easy window. The Trundle pillar is so good at disengaging as well. There is Cleanse on light, and actually
Speak of the Gala. And that's a bit of damage. Zedplay doesn't connect. The re-engage from Gala holds on to his summoners as well. That's what we know about Gala, willing to play the aggressive trade. And on something like the Varus, when this is game number 19 of Summer, Gala not going to lose too much by being burst down.
Yeah, he is down in terms of sustain now, though, because Light does have that extra potion on him and is a little bit higher in health at the moment. But it's not enough of a trade to find something Gala able to put enough damage to ward them off. And a big talking point I think we had going in this series was Xiaohu in the top lane. Typically, we see the team heavily play towards him, look to sort of accelerate him, get him ahead. But in this situation on the Kennen, you obviously have that CC setup, but it might actually be a bit tricky to find those windows. And it's not like he's on something like the Viego, where you're normally investing resources into it. You do see Wei is putting attention up here, but ultimately it's just kind of keeping Xiaohu safe rather than funneling too many resources into him.
Making sure that 10 CS lead continues to exist. Tarzan going to get spotted out by a really nice control ward from RNG. Another deeper ward spots out that Tarzan now on Raptors. And this means that RNG have full vision control. They know where the Volibear, who has his own CS advantage, is in the jungle. Speaking of that as well, Aux, look mid. The LeBlanc you already talked about in lane. The Lissandra not a direct counter for the laning phase itself, as Icon showing that with the advantage he has.
Yeah, and I think as well, in terms of laning caliber, Icon is a player who I expect to be in a really good position in this matchup against Cryin. Obviously, Cryin can just kind of clear up the waves, and he will get to the point where he's chilling, but for now, there has been that early pressure. And I like the vision that you mentioned that Wei was placing down the topside jungle. I think a big thing is when you're up against a team with an Ashe, LNG don't need to do hard work to spot out Wei. They literally just need to fire the hawk shot, and they can very easily work out where he is, even if they don't see him, just based on the camps that have been cleared. So it's on RNG to kind of match that with their own vision. It's going to take a lot more effort, but I like the fact that they're doing that and being proactive.
And a bit of vision control here from LNG towards the bottom side for now around this dragon. I want to run through comps while we get this slow pace of play here. 6 minutes in, people will be tuning in after T1 3-0'd, saying, where's the blood? Where's LPL? Just wait to see how it ramps up, because these teams do have more controlled early games. But back to my point here, Aux. What do you want to see here out of the junglers? Because you mentioned that LNG really play towards this pick composition. What is it about getting unlocked here for LNG that'll get that started?
I think the LNG vision control is a big factor, setting up around objectives, and then when someone comes to face check, you can connect with, Light's arrow. A pillar can be a really big issue. Icon can fly in. So I think LNG can kind of set the pace in that regard, and then look to use the priorities that they have to sort of set up on objectives early. I think Dragon isn't too much of a concern early, but when the Herald is up, I want to see Lwandy making an early move to the top side. I want to see that control, that setup, and then potentially looking to find a pick if possible to set things rolling.
We also talked to RNG and how they set for the top side themselves, Herald being a high control rate for this blue-sided team. And usually it's when Cryin's on Twisted Fate Rise, something that can get the map moving. Lissandra doesn't have the same effect, but you already talked about the team fighting capabilities. Cryin now has 6, and the early Glacial Thralls Orcs can still do a lot of work. With Kennen having ult as well, Xiaohu's going to use it onto Ale. It's solo kill king versus solo kill king. And Xiaohu forces Ale to use the Heartbreaker out. He still has flash, but Wei's coming up as well. And with Tarzan here, I don't know, Wei's a level down. Needs to get himself the Crescent Guard. But Xiaohu just forcing him off. And the lane-dominant style of RNG towards top lane Orcs, it continues.
Yeah, and it puts Ale in a really rough spot because he has Sustain in his kit and with that Vamp Scepter, so he can heal up the wave quite easily in a 1v1, but because Wei is there, because he's so low, with no ultimate, he has to go back and ends up giving up a fair bit of farm. Now, this is very typical of Wei. He'll just sit in the brush for a substantial amount of time, and LNG can easily expect that he would have backed off at this point. A lot of junglers would just leave here, but he'll stay and end up finding an opportunity to re-engage. Tarzan is actually hovering around the top lane, and eventually we do see Wei leave, but Ale is getting punished quite heavily in this matchup.
And Tarzan backing not but over a ward, though, going to his Raptors. Herald's up, though, Orcs. You wanted to see Lwandy roaming towards this play, but maybe top lane changes the thought process here for LNG, but not RNG's bottom lane. Ming going in, no Solar Flare available. No Subjugate either. Gala without his Chains of Corruption, but Light has the Enchanted Crusade, but doesn't have enough mana. There's the Chains of Corruption. Instant cleanse away. And Gala and Ming forcing Lwandy and Light back where they belong.
Yeah, I really like the play there as well. You see Ming go in and instantly back away. You land the CC, Gala fires an arrow, you win the trade. The thing is, if you go for this extended trade, so I'm going to hold that thought, we do see RNG secure the Herald.
Arrows coming through onto Cryin. It's going to hit him, but no! He goes into Glacial Prison, holds out at the last moment the Glacial Path to get away. And Wei does get away, folks. No pun intended with the Rift Herald as Ming is diving this with Solar Flare. Light just used the cleanse. Down to the bottom lane, it's First Blood. As Ming tanks it up, the Subjugate forces the flash away. But it is RNG on the board first with the top lane successful play and a bottom good dive.
Yeah, really nicely played. The fact that they burn their cleanse and that gives them the confidence to go for that dive. And actually, it was such an easy dive. Gala didn't even cleanse that. He could have cleansed the exhaust to make sure they had the damage, but Light on this Ashe was pretty vulnerable. The pillar wasn't really in a position to help, so a really good setup bot lane. And I think the big thing on the top side is we saw that Herald taken because of this pressure top, right? And this hasn't been RNG.
Yeah, Ale in trouble. Ale solo kill! Wei's just there to look good with the Herald down. Xiaohu is second in solo kills to Ale. I think we're going to say something about this game 1, Aux.
Yeah, and I didn't expect Kennen to have so much pressure in this matchup. I think the nerfs to the sustain that Viego has of minion waves really hitting him hard, and Ale just struggling here. And again, RNG haven't done a massive amount to sort of cement this advantage. Now throwing down the Herald, obviously that's going to make a big difference. But it just feels like in the 1v1, Xiaohu had the advantage, and LNG had no support to bail him out.
And this is what we talked about with RNG. That we knew that they could rely on Xiaohu because the top lane win condition is always there. I mean, Xiaohu is the top laner. He's first in all pro team for a reason. And now with the Herald getting the charge down, second turret down at 10 minutes, Aux, the gold is almost 3,500. In fact, it is 3,500 deep.
I mean, look at that top lane difference. 2,000 gold. And the thing is, you can look at the individual lane difference, but like, he is at 5,000 gold at this point in the game. He is far above everyone else to a ridiculous degree. There's no one within 1,000 gold of him. Wei's the closest, and obviously he's on his own team. Oh, they are looking for the engage, but Light does flash. And again, that's another summoner burn. So I'm liking this aggression from Ming to keep challenging summoners. And as a result, Lwandy isn't able to move because he has to constantly babysit Light. You can't leave him alone if he's flashless and cleanseless.
I mean, we talked about already here with LNG. Let's go back to the pick composition. LeBlanc, Ashe, you can see that so easily. LNG right now are just trying to find their footing in this game with the first dragon up, but it's RNG on the fight onto Lwandy. Chance Corruption don't connect though, and the pillar zones him off. They're all on top of Gala, who cleanses away, but he's targeted down and killed by Tarzan, while RNG forces re-engage. It's frozen thrall time with a Glacial Tomb of Doom. RNG even brings Xiaohu down without a TP, and that might just start the dragon.
So hard to win that fight. Like, they kill Gala, but they get caught in this big mess of just CC, and again, the frozen thralls super effective there. And the thing is, even if they'd won that fight a bit more heavily, the fact that Xiaohu's coming down, they knew they couldn't stay for the extended fight. He's already got that proto belt and the sorcerer shoes. He is incredibly strong right now. And essentially, LNG, despite it being this early in the game, your strategy has changed, right? We said that they wanted to find these picks. You can now only find picks. You need numbers advantages to get angles into this game. Because honestly, if you take a 5v5 now, you just lose, no matter what. If this Kennen presses R, you're going to go down. You can see a replay of that fight. And initially, it's RNG starting it. And I like the fact that they jumped heavily on a Gala. But again, they may kill him, but they take quite a bit of damage doing it. And then Cryin instantly flies in for lockdown. Frozen thralls are there to stop anyone following up. And again, at the end, Xiaohu turns up, so LNG wouldn't be able to win that extended fight regardless.
I mean, this is what we talked about with RNG, coming in as favorites, and I think we have to look at RNG in this game number 1 and how they're playing. Once again, Xiaohu gapping laners is where it all began, and Wei getting himself back into the jungle game, not only through that top lane, but now through the skirmishes that we talked about, where RNG could bring their numbers advantage and force a play there. Aux 4-1 on the scoreboard, game number 1 in 13 minutes. Looking one-sided so far, and even Xiaohu onto a LeBlanc. Icon goes down to a little bit less than half HP as the level 10 Kennen will now push the wave and look for even more turret plating.
Yeah, I mean, Xiaohu's just scary on this Kennen. He has no fear, and the thing is, Kennen is just going to be so powerful throughout this game. He's just going to get stronger and stronger. And the thing is, when you have a powerful skirmisher on the side of RNG, like one of those bruisers we often see, you can obviously try and play in different ways, try and shut it down, but when Kennen has his Zhonya's, when Kennen has his ultimate, it's very difficult to deal with him unless you pick him off before the fight. And I just think it's making teamfights so difficult. You can see LNG toying with the idea of contesting here. They know that Kennen doesn't have the ultimate, so that gives them a little bit of reprieve.
Well, they're going in and waiting for the arrow. There's the Crescent Guard coming through. Gala and Light are going to have a bit of a buffing up to do with each other. Once again, subjugate from Lwandy. Doesn't do too much, and Light holds onto the arrow for now. Gala trying to steal the scuttle. He comes close, but it is LNG who pick it up. But RNG, it's not just Xiaohu with no fear here, Orcs. It is the whole of RNG being so confident into LNG. As you said, the pick comp not working out. There's no picks to be had. RNG still grouping up and taking over.
But I like the restraint, though, right? They didn't push in to contest that scuttle because they didn't have the slicing maelstrom for Xiaohu. They probably could have still won that fight, but they don't risk it. They just go, well, what are we fighting for? Scuttle Crab? It's not going to be up by the time Dragon spawns. They're really not concerned. They're happy to leave it, and you can see from how they reset and move back on the map, RNG really don't care about this Dragon. They've already picked up one. LNG are a long way away from Dragon's Soul. They would need to get the next 4, which would put them at about 30 minutes in the game for Soul. RNG are focused on establishing a lead, and, well, they already have one. Focused on extending the lead, which is why they're playing towards this Herald on the top side. And the thing is, Arle, he doesn't have vision of the river right now. RNG moved up and swept it out, so you can see he has to back away. He can't even push the wave up because he has no idea where Wei is, and so it gives this freedom for RNG to take the Herald, pretty much uncontested, and they're going to be able to use that to continue snowballing the game.
I mean, Arle's just so behind here. The 30 CS difference, components of an item where the Proto Belt already exists, the Fiendish Codex with a little stopwatch in hand is what Xiaohu's sitting on. He's level 11 and Arle's still catching waves. He's still getting experience to hold on to that level, but it just doesn't feel the same up there. While Herald is achieved because of the earlier plays here, because of RNG holding so strong on top side. That's double Herald for this game, Orcs. They have any wave to push open, and I want you to talk me through the mid game here. What LNG need to do to stem this, slow it down, and start putting the game into their favor if they can.
I think creating pockets of vision and finding numbers advantages is really important. I think if you try and fight this next dragon, for example, RNG will group up and they'll win. Like, there's no other way you can spin it. They will win that 5v5. Very hard to see LNG coming out ahead. But if you can find opportunities where, for example, you look at the dragon area now, there is vision established for LNG. If you find someone face checking, even a tankier member, Lwandy can help make them squishy and to pick them apart. But again, you have to pick your fight, because if there's any wards behind you and Kennen TV's in, it's game over. So I think LNG need to be really careful and really deliberate when they go for these plays.
Well, it's 20 seconds till the dragon coming up here, Orcs, and LNG on the back foot here in the mid lane. You can see Icon deep towards bottom side, but as Wei clears out that ward, it's pretty blind for LNG in the river. It also feels like another giveaway here for the red team, and one that will bring merits. Wei even threatening with the Herald where Xiaohu is. It doesn't matter if he's top or bot, Orcs. They're going to play towards Xiaohu every time.
But importantly, LNG deciding not to contest the dragon is a great call. Right? They're going to lose that bot tower anyway. They're going to lose the dragon anyway. You can't stop that. But instead, they make the choice to look for things across the map. So Arle is able to get this tower in the top lane, and you're not trading evenly. I don't think you can ever spin it that way. You're losing 2 towers on a dragon for 1 tower. But when you're this far behind, when you're really struggling to find team fights, to get anything is at least something. I would be very disappointed if they went for that team fight and then flopped. But the fact that they're accepting, right, things are in a rough spot, we have to wait for a window, definitely a better thing to do. But they need to try and find these angles where they're setting up these pockets of vision. I think typically we see Lwandy being someone who's good at finding picks, but I think this is kind of on light with the Crystal or Icon on this LeBlanc. And the problem is, my concern is that it's actually quite difficult to pick anyone from RNG, because both the solo laners have a way of going invulnerable for a short period of time. Ming is very tanky. Wei can obviously pop his ultimate. It really is going to take quite a concerted effort from LNG to find someone who they can kill before the rest of RNG funnel in.
True, thinking about it, everyone really has an escape, don't they? Chains of corruption before Gala dies. It's also something that can be very threatening to LNG, so we're at a point where this game number 1 looking so controlled here. RNG with a 4k gold lead, 2 dragons in their back pocket. Might only be 5 kills, guys, but remember, we don't have the most bloodthirsty teams in front of us. LNG through playoffs so far have been pushing the limit and reacting to their opponent. With top esports, we saw faster games. With Suning, we saw that middling, the middling time. Against RNG Orcs, I mean, I feel like this series, if it's like this, it will continue to be controlled. We'll continue to see slower pace of games. But in game number 1, that's definitely better for RNG. As we're seeing Cryin in the side lane, Icon sitting with him.
This is good.
LNG trying something. You're right, this is good if they can get anything. And with a bit of burst damage coming through, Aftershock negates it all. Pillar through mid lane as well, and RNG still feeling comfortable as Gala's damage is becoming a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's the right idea. LNG are doing the right thing, but it's very hard to make it work, right? You're already behind in terms of gold. Cryin has Meg Tread, and they're looking for the engage.
But should they walk in? LNG almost get poked out by Gala once again. Xiaohu with the ulti, and the Stormbringer down from Tarzan to disappear. RNG, there's a Baron up in 50 seconds, but we'll hold our breath on that one while Lwandy go deep in mid. Nothing happens in the end, and we just continue to wait. And Aux, here again, I just want to point out the condition for RNG. Team fighting huge, and it's not a composition where we look at it and go, oh, well, their team fight late game is going to be atrocious. I mean, Kennen, Lissandra, even the Varus with a composition that looks reasonably squishy can do quite a lot of work.
Yeah, I do think that there may come a point really late in the game where Ale, if he's tanky enough to survive the initial AoE CC, can flourish, but that's not even warranted talking about at this point just because the gold deficit is so hard. And we're at that point where RNG really spike in the mid game, not just compositionally, but they are a team who very effectively accelerates at this point in the game. We see that Baron is about to spawn, and just as that's happening, we see resets coming in, RNG moving towards the Baron area to set up for this objective, and I want to see the level of control they establish, because this is a great window for them to find a fight, because the past few minutes, we haven't seen any fighting, right? Xiaohu popped that ultimate there, didn't find anything. They're not going to fight without the Slicing Maelstrom. They kind of reset, so they have two choices. The Baron is one, the Dragon is the other. Both of those are options to force a fight for RNG, and what I expect them to do is to keep vision on both. If LNG invest heavily on the Dragon, they can just start the Baron. If LNG try and contest the Baron, they might be able to start a fight, they might be able to go to Dragon. I think options are open for RNG now, and you can see LNG, they're devoting all their vision in this Dragon area, whereas on the other side of the map, Ming is actually clearing out the vision on the top side.
Yeah, he is moving freely by himself. I want to point out with an Infernal Soul, feels like LNG eye on the prize is definitely right here, making sure that RNG don't move to Soul Point in a minute 15. We'll talk Dragon setup in a bit because vision will be contested here, Orcs. It'll just be RNG moving into River. I want to mention that Xiaohu is 2.5 items strong. 222 CS. A blighting jewel. This guy is literally going to be like sticking your fork. Yeah, that void staff coming through, that's gonna be huge. There it is. Oh. There right now. If you've ever stuck your fork into an Australian PowerPoint, 240 volts, obviously you wouldn't be sitting here because you, no offense, I don't know why this is offensive, you'd be dead.
I hope you're not speaking from experience here.
I'm not, because I'm still here. I'm just telling you, it's something pretty stupid to do. Don't walk into the cannon. Xiaohu level 13, and his Dragon starts. It's begun by Ming. Teleport immediately in. That's going to be Cryin joining the fight. All 5 of RNG here, and Gala's already poking him down.
And the critical thing is RNG have established control of the area, and it's very hard to push in because you can have things like the Lissandra Claw flying at the fog of war, the Kennen hiding from you, and critically, this poke from Gala is very hard to avoid when you can't see where he's firing from. So LNG are using the terrain that's eliminated by the Infernal Soul just to wrap around and try and get in on the river, but it's so difficult. I'm not sure they can really find an angle to push forwards.
Without that vision you talked about, such a good point earlier on, noticing that for LNG, angles are important, vision's important. Right now they have none of those. And Soul Point's coming up as Tarzan's trying to move into the river. This will lead to Soul Point, folks, for RNG's Icon. Goes over the wall into Wave, but the jungle's still there. Stolen by Tarzan, though. And now on top of Wave, the Stormbringer, the Solar Flare. Everybody's in, but Xiaohu lights them ablaze. This is the top laner that moved from mid to define himself in the LPL. RNG crushed them. It may be a steal, but everybody burns.
Yeah, LNG, honestly, that's probably as good as you're going to get it. Like, that is not a great outcome to lose 3 members for 1 on the side of RNG, but you've got the Dragon, so I think you have to take it when you're in this much of a deficit. They are now looking potentially for a flank here. Icon could burst them down.
He could. He's going in for the double distortion, but he's knocked up immediately. Where's Icon going to go? He does kill Gala, though, and he's back on in with the cloners. Ale wants his reset. Heartbreaker not achieving a kill and not killing down Way. Icon will survive, but his counterpart in Ale drops to the floor.
Yeah, just a little bit too far behind to start finding the momentum in the fight. If Ale had a second item completed, maybe something more happens there. But ultimately, they stop the push. They trade another kill, which when you're behind, trading kills, you're completely happy with. So this feels like a bit of a disaster for LNG, but honestly, I think it goes as well as you can expect. You're not going to win a team fight in this position, but they steal away the Dragon. You see they're actually able to take out Gala thanks to Light Flash, but realistically, as soon as the Kennen's in the fight, it's over, right? There's no way you're really able to deal with that right now. So I think LNG have to be happy that they've delayed the Soul. That's the critical thing. They've basically added 5 minutes to RNG's Infernal Soul being a possibility, and that gives them time. And that's so important when you're this far behind.
And as you said, you know, in that fight towards mid after the Soul Steal, or Soul Point Steal, I should say, Icon getting the kill, resources and a trade in the end when you're the team behind. So LNG might be down by about 6,000 gold at 24 minutes, but as you said, they bought themselves time and they've got themselves a LeBlanc with a double needlessly large. Rabadon's coming up here for Icon as his second item. And Icon has been playing a lot better. We talked about this in our opening segment about 2.5 hours ago, Orcs. You know, way back when. Feels like yesterday. We did talk about how the rest of LNG are doing so much better because of people like Tarzan, but also it feels like Tarzan is empowering them, where Icon's also just genuinely having a good split.
Yeah, he's been playing really well in the mid lane, and honestly, I feel like it's good to play the Master Cryin now. RNG looking to engage.
Just talking about Tarzan, dodges away with the Stormbringer. He's used that 3 times in a row, or rather, 3 times we've seen to get away from fights. A bit of a sky splitter on the Retribution path, but RNG have an open Baron. There's no vision control here, apart from that control ward in the top side brush, and they begin.
Yeah, and watch, if you look on the bot side of the map, Xiaohu is recalling, right? There's actually a ward behind he can TP to. They want a fight off the back of this. They're ready to go.
Well, where does he come in from now? You talked about the ward there on the back of the pit, but Arley's there as well. Instead, it's this massive ward as Icon's going to chain him down. Xiaohu for the deep little Sonya's as well. Icon doing the job. That's why we talked him up. The ulti comes out from Xiaohu, but it's the sigil that secures him down. LNG have already started this fight off massively while Light free firing onto Cryin. RNG is split and Arley is going to get reset as well. RNG have walked into the trap. They're left with 2 members. Arley re-going in. Heartbreak is a little bit too deep. But LNG, they return in game 1.
They managed to get 4 kills. It's a huge team fight, and it all came from Icon. I kept saying, if the Kennen can get an ult off, he's gonna win the fight for RNG. But Icon burst him out before the fight, forces the Zhonya's, forces the ult, and then they're able to clean up from there. Beautiful approach, and I think the critical thing was how LNG split up in the lead to that. And now, not only do they get all that cash injection, they're gonna get the Baron on top of it. They've closed the gold gap substantially. They went from being about 6,000 gold down to only 1,500. This is massive, and we can see in the replay, the TP's coming in, Icon's ready. Instant chains timed perfectly, and look at Xiaohu, he's already chunked.
I mean, it's rough, right? The strongest member goes down at the start of the fight, and this is why I was talking up Icon, because making the picks through while Arley's dealing with the back line.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that you lose some of that damage in this fight, you lose some of the AoE CC, and suddenly Arley's a lot more free to push forwards, right? He does end up pushing a bit too far forwards here, but ultimately, without the slicing Maelstrom, splitting everyone up, with Cryin on low HP already, having to peel away, it means that Arley has time to look for sustained damage, extended fights, and get those resets. So, seeing LNG in a really good position. Icon now with the Rabadon's death cap in pocket, and I feel like RNG's composition, as much as their team fighting is still good late, things like the Varus aren't going to be as relevant late in the game. They spike very much in the mid game. Now they are positioning for this dragon. Again, we're looking at Xiaohu and what you can do on this Kennen, and can LNG shut him down?
You know what I'm looking for as well? The Rabadon's LeBlanc and the angle here from Icon, who's level 16. The LeBlanc, if he hits a target, he can burst them down and take it through. But look at Arley as well. He's not going over a ward because it's controlled for now. Ming walks into the brush to contest, but Dragon started. This is still moving to Soul Point if RNG can get it. But it's LNG who have the priority after getting the Baron, after clearing up some gold. Wei goes in. LNG still getting forced out. They're still scared of Xiaohu as well, who has Flash and the Slicing Maelstrom. He's hit Arley, but Cryin at half HP as well.
They'll be so cautious at this point. The poke from the Varus doing so much work here, and that's kind of what's given in RNG position. You can see there, Light chunked out now, forces them back.
Look at Arley again. Arley in the angle. Then see Chanakras Arrow Icon goes in. Has it set up for Ming. The ultimate though from Gala to burn him down, but Arley does get the reset before RNG turn back around. Xiaohu's used the slice of Maelstrom, but it's Icon who secures the dragon while Xiaohu goes on in. Sonya's is the bait, but LNG is still healthy enough. Light free firing from the back line, and Lwandy's playing the front line. Cryin still here with Icon on the flank. This mid laner showcasing his tenure in the LPL, but Xiaohu showing his. Away Icon runners, Lwandy gets poked down by Gala. LNG get the dragon. They trade across the board. Another seems worth here in game one.
And once again, RNG aren't getting the impact from their ultimates. You know, we saw Xiaohu pretty much only ulting Ale there, and because Ale got the reset, he didn't actually suffer too much damage on the back end. Yes, he went down, but you now lose that ultimate from the Kennen, which is such a massive team fighting tool. They put all those resources into Xiaohu, and if he's not able to get a good ult, if he gets chunked out like around the Baron pit, if he gets a low value ultimate like we saw there, then we see RNG unable to successfully win the fight. Remember, those frozen thralls are reliant on taking people down. If you're not doing so on the back of your ultimates, you're gonna lose momentum in these fights.
God, this game one has spiced up though, hasn't it? I mean, this was RNG holding so much control as Icon. He's the threat on top of Gala. LNG making sure he knows it. Gala putting out some good damage himself, but that 3-item Varus not hitting as hard as you think, where Icon gets on a target and he will blow them up. Ladies and gentlemen, Baron is coming up in 2 minutes 30. It's just expired for LNG. There's no dragon. This is just the fight over the scuttle for now. So things might quieten down. And Aux, while things do quieten down, I want to bring it back to what we've seen out of LNG so far, where LNG have been a team that have had some stomps against Sunni, even top esports, right? We've seen some back and forth games. I think the resilience out of this miracle run of a team has just been exceptional. For them to get top 6, no one expected. No one expected them to beat Sunni or to beat top esports. Yet here they stand. And even in game one, they've capitalized on Xiaohu making a pretty inty TP, but still LNG showing that same resilience in a game that they shouldn't be even close in.
Yeah, I didn't expect them to win this game, and they're actually keeping it competitive just because there's some really solid individual plays, but also, again, that setup from RNG around the Baron was really threatening. But because they disengaged, because they were able to deal with Xiaohu initially, it gave them the ability to take that fight. And I think a lot of teams might have stopped there, might have just got baited in and caught by the Kennen, but LNG have been approaching this one really well, using their tools effectively, and they just keep looking for those opportunities for a pick.
What a pillar! What a pillar on top of Ming now. He's already used the stopwatch, as that was just stuck against the wall. I mean, Iwandi's pillar was gorgeous. We've seen so many gorgeous Trundles so far in playoffs. Glad to be seeing it here in game one, when LNG are trying to take control. Now, Aux, that was too close for comfort, especially with Baron coming up in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, Xiaohu might be looking for something.
He's Stormbringer, but the problem is now Lwandy. He's got Chains of Corruption, has to flash away. Poke comes through from Gala as well. Well, what is happening there? Ale is super deep. Ale is coming in for the flank, but I don't think LNG have the health bars to facilitate.
Yeah, he has to back away, and this is going to give RNG control over the Baron area. The critical thing there was when the Kennen turned up, LNG were like, we have to disengage. We don't have the positioning right now to deal with them. We can't just force in on them, so they back off, but they take so much poke, and this gives a window for RNG. I would think they would want to head over to the Dragon and secure some vision around there, but looks like they're actually going to go for some resets first. We're kind of low on wards for Ming, but the thing is, we have the Baron up in 15 seconds. The Dragon is spawning in 1 minute and 20, and the thing is, this would be the third for either team, and LNG, if they manage to get a 4 Infernal Dragon Soul, it'd be monstrous. Especially, I mean, there's so many champs in this game who benefit from an Infernal Soul. It's Infernal Soul. We talk about all the different dragons. Infernal Soul is, in almost everyone's opinion, the strongest, and it's very hard to not be effective. But particularly with champions like LeBlanc, thirsty ones like Kennen, the poke from Varus, it's really powerful. And we can see the LNG are moving down towards that bot side. There's a vision around there, potentially trying to deny any sort of route in for RNG, because obviously things like the pillar, like the crystal arrow, make it very difficult to move forwards. And RNG, they have a bit more vision towards the Baron, but they don't want to give this dragon up.
No, they definitely don't. This is important for both these teams. And in game one, when you get momentum in the series, in round 3, to try and make top 4, this is everything. Starting off game one in great fashion is what you want. And I think it's a good time to check in on the items with that 20-second timer on up in our top left. 3 items here on Cryin, 4 on Xiaohu. Is Ale, he just lives in here. Rent-free in Cryine's head. RNG like, okay, forget it. They're going to start the Baron, which is sneaky, sneaky.
And this is very common from RNG. set the vision up for the Baron and go for it when Dragon spawns. But the thing is, the Ashe gives them vision, and now LNG are looking to fight.
Well, they got to decide because teleport's coming through from RH. It's Cryin moving to the mid lane at 3k. Tarzan's in, but he's taking jungle. LNG don't have to contest Smite now as Baron is still being targeted. Tarzan trying to heal up. The Slice Maelstrom in the middle of the pit. Xiaohu trying to bring it back, but the Smite's easy. LNG secure the Baron in game number 1, and RNG is split up. Ali with the reset flies through the sky. The solar laners bring up. They scale over RNG, and game 1 now looking like LNG's.
They have the Baron, they have 5 members up to push, and there are long spawn timers. LNG had a rough start to this one, but they bounce back in force, and RNG are caught with the pants down at their ankles around that Baron.
Well, Aux, I don't know how it's happening when RNG controlled the early game, but LNG, we talked about the miracle run. It's a best of 5, folks, so it's too early to be getting this high fee. But LNG against the MSI champions, against the Spring champions, have a bare nexus. The miracle run continues as they bang open game 1 against Royal Never Give Up.
And I think we saw positives for RNG, and we saw their traits, things like setting up for the Baron effectively, trying to choke the enemy team out of vision, using the teleport for a flank, but it felt like LNG were prepared. They were ready for it. When they go for the flank angle, they had Icon waiting to shut down the Kennen. When they go for the Baron, they have the vision from the Hawk shot from the Ashe, and they're very quick to respond. It felt like RNG were like, oh, business as usual. We had that massive win streak. We should just be continuing that. But the thing is, they haven't faced playoffs LNG. And playoffs LNG is a completely different beast to what we saw in the regular season.
Yeah, it completely is. I mean, LNG, it's either coming through the laning phase, we see very clean games, or we see moments capitalizing on weaknesses. Like in this game 1, let's be quite real. RNG looks scattered to the winds after what was such a clean early game. Now, guys, this graphic is obviously done after pick ban.
30k damage, Leona?
Dude, Gala did 29k damage on Leona. That's nuts, guys. That's complete. We should screen cap that. I don't think a support's ever done that much. So, yeah, unfortunately, sorry, go on.
You can look at the goal graph, right? Look how favored it is to RNG. And even, like, it was only that last fight where things actually went over to LNG.
Yeah.
And I think RNG got their game plan working. They had their resources. They started to do their setups. And it was just LNG able to out-navigate them around it. That was a critical thing. I felt like, you know, it would be a struggle to find team fights favorable for LNG, but they managed to find these windows and they managed to really split things up. In a close clump team fight against the Kennen Lissandra, Chains of Corruptions as well for the Varus, very difficult to play, but they kept things very loose, and particularly Icon and LeBlanc was a pivotal factor in finding success there.
Now, I just want to reiterate to our audience out there, obviously the graph was a little bit wonky. The champions played, of course. We did an offline pick ban due to some audio issues for game 1. That's why we had a 2.5-hour technical pause before we even got going, and why the show hadn't started in that game 1. So that's why things are a little bit scattered. You can do your own math. You can do the working out. Gala, of course, doing the most damage there on the Varus in the end through the poke. But RNG, I mean, that is not the way you want to start this series. RNG do not have the double elimination yet. They're not in a safe place where if they do get knocked out, sure, things still look pretty good for seeding, for, you know, potential of worlds, but like that is a moment of weakness after what was such a clean early game, what was such a good top lane performance from Xiaohu in the first 15 minutes.
And you know what? We often see Xiaohu on these cleanup champions, on these bruisers, things like the Viego, and I mean, he's our all-star top laner, right? He's been a monster through this season. Didn't look good in the Kennen, right? Mechanically, in the lane, great, but in those team fights, wasn't finding the impact we typically expect from him, and I felt like the rest of the team were relying on him to find these windows to approach, and it didn't really connect. So maybe see a different draft priority coming out from RNG in this next one, but definitely back to the drawing board. Well, for LNG, they're going to go straight towards that direction of game 2 with the game up. Not how we thought we'd start, but a great way to kick off the series that we've all waited for. Ladies and gentlemen, quick break. When we return, we're going to see if LNG can do it again, or if RNG manage to even up the series.